Welcome to the Power of Nature podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Waldo. In this show, I talk about how nature and the natural world can communicate with us, how it can communicate directly and individually with each of us, and how this can create immeasurable benefits for us in our lives. I share stories of my experiences doing this as part of a regular and ongoing practice, and I talk to others about their experiences with the power of nature as well. So join me as we go on a journey of learning about the power of nature, how it can communicate directly with us, and the impact that it can have on our own lives. Welcome back to the Power of Nature podcast. In today's episode, I'm talking about chickens, the joy we can experience, and the amazing adventures that we can have in having chickens. So let's just dive right into this. If someone had said to me, Michelle, you're going to do an episode on chickens as episode 17 of this podcast, I'd have been like, no, I don't think so. There's so many other aspects of nature that I would talk about first, like, wild birds. I could go on and on and on for so many more podcast episodes beyond the ones that I've done so far. Cats and wildcats and deer and oh my gosh, so many things. I've barely scratched the surface on trees and mountains and all of that in terms of how nature has affected me. So why an episode on chickens, so early in the podcast when I have so many other things that I've kind of had, in the back of my mind, not on a list because I've not done that. I don't do that, but just kind of in the back of my awareness that I would think would come first. Well, I was out feeding my horses this morning, and on the way back from giving them their hay, I checked on the chickens, and I gave them some food, and I checked their brooding boxes for eggs because sometimes we forget our eggs and it's getting colder here. And we don't really want them to freeze. And so I checked for their eggs. And the thing that I've been experiencing lately in particular is discovering the most beautiful feathers in and around the brooding boxes of our chicken coop. Now, we picked specific chickens when we got chickens. We're first-time chicken owners, I should note. And actually, as I say that, I realize I never refer to us as owners of any animals. I guess I do if I have to kind of fill out a form or speak formally to somebody, do you have horses? Yes. Do you own blah? I say yes. But I usually don't call or think of myself and ourselves as owners. And I kind of had the word steward come up to me. And I kind of looked it up because I wasn't even quite sure why it came up. But steward is a person who looks after the passengers on a ship, aircraft, or train and brings them meals. Or that's number one from at least online. And then number two was a person responsible for the supplies of food to a college, club, or other institution. So I kind of feel like this about all of our animals that we have. We are stewards to them. We have cats, we have dogs, we have chickens. I have 2 pet mice. We have a lizard. We have horses. We have a lot of wild animals. And I kind of feel like we're stewards to all of them. I mean, I don't feed the wild animals, but I try to be a steward in a way, to, supporting them and encouraging them to be on our property because I love that. But as far as chickens go, yeah, I would say we're chicken stewards. And, I would say they bring us as much as we bring them. And when we got chickens, when we decided to embark on this chicken stewardship adventure, because we've lived in Montana for a few years, and it was always kind of like, oh, people here have chickens. It could be interesting to have chickens. We had been eating a lot of eggs at the time, so it was kind of like, oh, well, to have eggs, we could have chickens, and it'd be kind of cool. And I'd seen some people that had chickens, and they seemed to really enjoy their chickens. So it was always in the back of my mind until this year, 2024, in the spring, when we were finally like, let's get chickens. And so we got 10 baby chicks, and we picked specific chickens. I did the research, but I wanted chickens that were cold tolerant because it gets cold here in Montana, or weather tolerant because it also can get really hot. So, extreme temperatures, good egg laying, because I figured, well, they can give us eggs, although that wasn't like my primary or only reason for having chickens. And ones that were kind of more quiet and that would get along with each other, because I kind of thought we would try a few different breeds, and I was told to get at least 2 of each one, of each color, so that they kind of see each other and, don't feel like they look different from all the other chickens. They have at least one other pair that looks like them. So that's what we did. We got, and we ended up getting 10. So 5 pairs of chickens. And what we got were buff Orpingtons, which are these kind of like solid yellow chickens. We got barred rock chickens, which are kind of like black and white speckled. We got Mystic Onyx, I think that's what they're called, and they're solid black. They're kind of iridescent in color. And then we got 2 different kinds of Wyandottes or Wyandottes. Still not quite sure of the pronunciation. I forget which one it is. But gold laced Wyandottes and silver laced Wyandottes. So the silver laced Wyandottes are kind of black with white, and the gold ones are kind of like a rust color with white, and both with black, like black and white, and then with rust, or just black and white. But they have like these kind of tipped wings. I call them are kind of like art chickens, because their feathers, when you look at each individual feather, just kind of looks artistic to me. And that is why I decided to do this episode today, because here I was out, give the chickens some food, and then check the brooding box, and they have been just leaving behind in the brooding box the most beautiful feathers. It started with just the Wyandotte feathers, which just kind of have like this kind of almost look like spilled white on a black feather with kind of this really cool coloring, really cool, organic looking kind of pattern. But then other feathers have been, left in the brooding box lately too, and I'm not even quite sure. They kind of look a little bit more like hawk feathers or something like that, but of course they're not. They're from our chickens, but I'm not sure which birds they're from. They're clearly not from the black ones, but they're from one of the other ones, and they're not yellow, so they're not from the Buffalo Orpingtons. But one of the most amazing things has been, getting these feathers, and I started kind of getting them and putting them on my window ledge, because to me, I've always, kind of, anytime I've seen really pretty feathers like hawk feathers or whatever, when I've been out in the wild, I've collected them, not like a huge collection, but just on occasion, um, and have them as keepsakes. And I just love looking at them. I just love feathers. I just think they're so beautiful, like natural feathers. And so here are these chickens that are giving us these feathers. And I was way more excited, and I've been way more excited about the feathers than the eggs. Most people have chickens for eggs, and, it's cool, but I don't even really eat eggs anymore. So I think the whole egg experience is cool, that they like produce these eggs and we bring them in and we wash them off, and then the rest of my family eats the eggs, and I have them on occasion. But for the most part, I really love the feathers, and I actually want to do a painting inspired by these feathers. I've been kind of feeling called to do this for a while, so it's going to inform my art and my creativity, because I feel like the patterns are so beautiful. But there's so many benefits from chickens beyond just the feathers or the eggs. Like, when we got these chickens, well, first they were so tiny, they were like 2 days old, and we were so convinced that some of them weren't going to make it. We got more than what we thought. We originally were only going to get 6, and then we thought we should get 8. And then we ended up getting 10, because the woman at the store is like, oh, you're surely going to lose like 2 or 4 in like, pretty early on, because it's pretty common for these little chicks to not survive. So we, of course, did not want that to happen, and they've all survived. So now we have 10 chickens, 2 pairs of 5 different colors, and as I said, and they were so amazing. Like, I would just kind of, from the little care that I did with them, taking care of them and giving them food and all of that when they were tiny little chickens. So like, there was a period where we moved them out of their little small brooding box into this other space that I would go in, and I would sit with them. I would sit in their little space, in their little pen, for an hour every day when they were little. And they would come and like lay on my lap and lay on my leg, or then they started like really jumping up onto my back and sitting on my shoulders, and occasionally trying to get on my head. I put the kibosh on the head thing because I wasn't up for that. But, it was really cute when they sat on my shoulder, because they would just jump up and sit on my shoulder. It was kind of like this little cute thing. I used to have a kitten that did that when I was in college, and it was this really cute thing, a little kitten that sat on my shoulder. Well, kind of like the kitten that got too big to sit on my shoulder. At some point, the chickens kind of got a little too big to be up on my shoulder, and I would notice they would immediately try to jump up on my back and jump up on my shoulder, and they were getting a lot heavier. So there was a period where I wasn't sitting with them as much anymore. But they still, they love to jump up on my shoulder, if they can. Now, of course, they're full-grown chickens, and their personalities have emerged. The leader, one of the leaders of the group, is one of the Buff Orpingtons, which is yellow, and she is just so comical and so opinionated in a way. You can just see it. She's just sassy. She's sassy. Actually, we have not named any of these chickens, which is very odd, because I came up with names for them, but that I didn't kind of give them to them, because I figured I'd get to know them more. But this one I have always called Moxie, because I feel like she has so much moxie. She just is Miss Spunky Chicken. And so she kind of like is in charge of everybody. But there's so many things, like there's so many things about the chickens that are just so fun, and I know that there is I don't know when it started. I mean, I think people, certain people have always had chickens, but it seems like there's been a trend in the last maybe 10 years, 15 years of more people having chickens, whether they live out in the country or they live in the city, and really just delighting in their chickenness, delighting in their chicken antics and becoming like really fond of chickens. And I never really thought any of this at all until there was a woman that I knew in California, and then I was friends with her on Facebook, and she got really obsessed with chickens, and I started to see chickens in a new light, but it was still a long time from then to us getting chickens. But I feel like chickens are, I've talked in this show about the power of birds. And I think there's something about birds in general. Chickens don't fly, but they can fly a little bit. And I think there's something like so cool about chickens that speaks to our hearts. So many of us, it's like it's like connecting with them and watching them connects us into our own selves. And you see this, I hear, people talk about this. They're like, yeah, I just go out and I do my stuff with my chickens and I feel more centered. It's kind of like gardening, people who go out and they garden and they're just, in nature, right? They're in natural elements, nature elements. And there are so many benefits of doing that. And whether you're going out in your garden or you're going out with your chickens, there are these amazing benefits that we can experience when we do this. And I certainly have experienced so many things from having our chickens. I mean, like today, I was sitting and drinking my cup of tea and journaling. And we let our chickens out and we can see them from the front window. My husband had let them out of the coop this morning and they went out into their yard and they were kind of running around and they've been a little bored. We need to figure out a way, not over the winter, but maybe next year, a way to give them more land and more space. But we have hawks and eagles and stuff here. So it's kind of like, we have to really watch because, and other predators too. But we have to really watch from just, overhead that the chickens could, get attacked. So we've been trying to figure that out. But they have like this little run, and then they have an extended run that we created with the base of a trampoline, a really big trampoline. We created like an extended pen. So they go running out, and they chase each other around. They do all these funny things. Like one of them will grab something. They'll like grab a little piece of paper and then they'll all just play a game of chase. And it's just so fun to watch, the chickens. And today I let out one of our dogs, my son's dog, who's young and tall and, very, she gets like the ruff of her neck, like on the back of her neck gets roughed up when she gets excited. And she ran out to the chickens with her ruff up and was kind of like barking at them, not like she's going to attack them, but this is what she does. She kind of like is very playful. She probably would lick them to death. That's what she does to our cats. She just licks and licks and licks them to the point where, they get pretty annoyed about the whole deal. So, but we've never let the dog loose with the chickens. They always, are in their enclosed area when she's near them, but she ran right up to them and was kind of barking at them. But the chickens ran right up to her on the other in their pen, and especially the leader just ran right up, and it was like this standoff between a chicken and the dog. And of course the dog is much bigger. The dog is half Australian Shepherd and half German Shepherd, and she's tall and she's long and she's way bigger than the chickens. And yet the chicken just ran up like as if it was a dog, and kind of like did like a little plaything. And it was so amazing to just watch this, and just see how it was so amazing to kind of see how these chickens, played with the dog. It actually reminded me of years ago. It feels very much like years ago. I remember when I lived in San Francisco, and I was dating my husband at the time, and we went to the zoo, the San Francisco Zoo, and they had snow leopard cubs that had been born. And the snow leopard cubs, it was like kind of almost closing time. So it was, I think, in the season where it gets dark early. And so it was kind of getting a little bit dark, and it was closing time. And the cubs were basically kind of like playing chase with us through their pen, through their enclosure. So like we would kind of run, and they would kind of run alongside of us, almost like they were kind of like going to tackle us, but they weren't. And then we would run back, and they would kind of run back too. And they were playing, and we've played like this with our dogs and our cats and stuff like that. It was that kind of a play. They weren't trying to attack us through the glass or through the pen or anything like that. They were just like running. It was a very playful thing. And it always struck me, because I actually went back to the zoo a couple times and had that same experience. But this is kind of what was going on with our dog and the chickens today. They were just kind of running around and playing. Yet another thing that is a benefit, right? Because I'm just sitting there, I'm journaling, I'm thinking about, some stuff that's going on, but there's nothing like looking outside and bringing a smile to your face when you see, your one chicken acting like a dog, running out like she's as big as the dog. And then the chickens all running back and forth with the dog, kind of playing with the dog through the fence. I mean, there's nothing like the smile that you get on your face when it's funny, it's fun. And it brings you out of whatever, you might have been thinking about or distracted by or whatever. And just, it brings a lightness, it brought a lightness to my state of being, for sure. And I find this over and over again, that our chickens are just, they're so comical, they also are so sweet. They always talk to me with their little cooing and the way they talk. And I would have never expected this. I knew that having chickens would be cool and it would be an adventure, but I never, ever, ever expected having chickens would be like what it is, it has been. Like, I would have never thought that I would let a chicken be up on my shoulder, or that I would enjoy it, or that I would get, I'm an animal lover, so I knew I would get attached. And we did not give these chickens for food at all, so I knew that was not going to happen. But I never thought I would get attached to them in the way that I am attached to them. Like, their entire character, who they are, their unique being as chickens. And they're all different too. They all have different little just like little personalities, different ways of being, like the Silver Wyandottes. The one used to always, when she was young, always just come and sit on my right knee and just, no matter what, settle down and just sit down and just hang out with me. The one Buff Orpington, which is Moxie, always had to be on my back. Always, 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 always. But she would also let me hold her. The Two Barred Rocks were kind of more standoffish, but they also kind of had their own unique little things that they did. I mean, each one of them has their own unique things. The onyx, the solid black chickens, they are really talkative. They do these like cooing sounds and talking sounds, and it's amazing. And the thing about it is, it's not about, okay, so there are a few things. One, me talking about this and appreciating what I appreciate about my chickens benefits me. I believe that when we allow ourselves to just look at what we like and enjoy it just because we enjoy it, and we just kind of revel in it, I believe that serves us. I believe it benefits us. I believe it affects our state of being, and it just, is a beneficial thing for us. I've experienced it time and time again. So there's that. But also, I think that there's this amazing way in which when you, like in the case of chickens, if you feel called to get a chicken and you bring them in your life, and then you just let yourself be open to the delights and the quirks and the silliness and whatever experiences you have with those chickens. And I think this is the case with any animal that we are the steward of. I think this is, we can experience this with all of our animals that we call pets, with our horses, or not a pet, I wouldn't call a horse a pet, but, with our dogs, cats, any of the things we traditionally call pets, or with any animals that we have an amazing opportunity to really connect with the essence of them, which helps us connect with the essence of us. The essence of us meaning our own feelings and what kind of like our heart soaring and our heart just doing what our heart does when our heart is full. I feel like by having animals and allowing ourselves to engage in this way as stewards of animals in our lives, that we get these amazing benefits of, for ourselves. And chickens can be one big way to do this. Now, I experience this with all of the animals that we have, that we are stewards of, as well as the wild animals that are around us. And I talk about, this in the show. I also talk a lot about all the things that I gain and experience from horses, which is funny because I've not done a horse episode for Power of Nature, but I have three podcasts actually about horses. One called Riding from the Inside Out, listening to our horses and ourselves, which is all about listening to ourselves and having horses be an avenue to do that, which, horses to me are an aspect of nature, what is natural. So there's that. I have another podcast called Horse Girls on a Budget. Creative Ways of Pursuing Our Connection for and Passion for Horses, which is all about learning talking about how to have horses in our lives, even if we're on a budget. And then I have another podcast that is I stopped recording for, but it had 11 episodes in it, called Adventures in Horse Ranching, which was the talking about the experiences we had when we moved to our house in Montana and we decided to set up our property to have horses on it. And all the adventures we went through of not knowing what we're doing and having a lot of ups and downs and, a lot of really high highs and some serious low lows and all of that, and having ultimately been better for it, which is my point, that no matter whether it's horses or, dogs or cats or trees in our property or whatever, I find that when we allow ourselves to connect with nature and natural elements and any aspect of anything that is nature or natural, we benefit from it. We benefit from having done it. And chickens are a part of that. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. And if you are a chicken steward as well, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean about chickens. And if you don't have chickens yet and you've been curious and you have an opportunity to do it, check it out. I'm glad that we have chickens. And I do believe that they bring a lot of joy to us. And I'm glad that we're stewards of 10 little, kind of big, actually, furry little birds out there that make me laugh all the time with their antics and give me beautiful feathers that inspire my creativity and bring me joy in watching them and their behavior with our dogs and so much more. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, and I'm going to leave it at that until the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Power of Nature podcast. To learn more about me and my other offerings, you can visit my website at michellewaldo.com. That's MICHELLEWALDO.com.